never, under no circumstances, not 50 years ago either, during the 6-Day War when they, well, you don't have to even explain that the mood was here that that was the end of the country. That was the end of the country. You know, we tried, the Zionists, we survived for 19 years. That was that. Even during those times, democracy was still intact. And the decisions taken, including about Yerushalayim, the old city, the decision, once again, was taking half-a-minute walk from here in a place. מכניסים אותם לאולם, למחסן הזה של פרדוח? לא חושב. Anyway, there is a small room. We a little bit took care of it, but it was actually a small place filled with, you know, all kinds of things belonging to the floor cleaners. But that was the only safe place those days. And the government meeting was very short. There was actually they were sitting on the chairs that were kept there, kind of warehouse. And they took the decision in several minutes about the release of the old city of Jerusalem, and which later led to reunification of Jerusalem, to creation of this building and all that. So it's like history happening, and today, obviously, the last thing I would say, you know, I'll say it in a personal way. When I was first elected speaker during the previous term, and it's kind of a strange procedure, but this is the procedure. You basically already know that you are the next speaker, because the coalition was created. My faction voted me to be their candidate for the speaker. This is the first vote coalition is taking in the Knesset. I mean, you must be suicidal not to rally around the flag and not to support the coalition decision. So everyone was saying to me, you have to prepare a speech. You have to prepare a speech. And I said, but how does it look? I asked for the vote from the Knesset. They vote for me. I go up there to the podium, sit down, take out of my pocket a pre-prepared speech that I had written, and I start reading it, meaning that I couldn't care less about their vote. I kind of took it for granted. How does it look? I'm asking for their support, for their trust. How does it look? But people said to me, I'm crazy. It's such a moving moment. You won't be able to speak. I said, but still, you know, I have to respect members of Knesset. They are voting. It's not appointing the new speaker. It's electing the new speaker. So we had that argument. And I said, okay, you know what? I won't write a speech. I'll think about what I can say. And I started thinking, you know, you can't deliver a political speech in the very first moment. You have to speak about something common, some common denominator. And I started looking for a common denominator. Probably, I said, my predecessors. What was the common denominator of all the speakers? I couldn't find them. They were so different. Religious, non-religious, left, right, Ashkenazic, Sephardic. I can't find the common denominator. Socialists, capitalists. Then I said, probably I'll look at some common denominator among the members of Knesset to bring this to the floor and say, see, this unites us. Didn't really work. And then in the end, I found a certain common denominator, probably not of 100% of members of Knesset, but of many. And I was very glad that I found it, because in my case, many people said, what a story, what a story. A prisoner of Zion in the former Soviet Union, nearly dying in a labor camp, released with the pressure of the world Jewry and world governments, makes it to Israel, becomes a prominent political figure, in the end becomes the speaker of the Knesset, the ultimate representative. What a story. It is a story, I'm not denying it. Quite a story. But I was very glad to find that common denominator. And I said it in my quote-unquote inauguration speech, that if someone would be able to find a computer, some 40 years ago, say, and would feed in all the details about members of Knesset of today into that computer. And wouldn't necessarily put a question about politics or becoming an elected official, but would say, is this man or this lady, or what are the chances of this man or this lady to become something? The computer would process it for a couple of minutes and would say 0. Because, think, a girl, say, 5 years old, don't remember exactly, that leaves Ethiopia with her family through the Sudan desert. She sees at the age of 4 and 5 around her murder, rape, robbery, all of that, makes it finally to Israel, gets into some, between you and me and the lamppost, underprivileged area in this country, with not exactly the best schools around, with income that is not exactly something to write home about, and 30 years later, she's a lawyer and a member of the Knesset. Another lady born in an area where, once again, somewhere in the south, where except for street cats and drug dealers, there was nothing around those days. And 20, 30 years later, a prominent educator and a member of the Knesset. An officer, severely wounded in the First Lebanon War, not Second World War, First Lebanon War, with all the chances of staying a handicapped war veteran and spending part of his time in this Levenstein Center, if you know what I mean. And he is a member of the Knesset, a living member of the Knesset. A person that never had a chance in her life to walk. That's how she was born. And she is a prominent member of the Knesset. So you look at this common denominator and you say, probably it's not the common denominator we're used to, but it's a common denominator of this most mobile society in the world, and probably most diverse parliament in the world. We don't have many people who are called Junior like in the American Congress. He's Jack Smith Jr. because his father was a member of Congress, his grandfather was a member of Congress, his great-grandfather was federal judge. So he is the first and the W and the Junior and this and that. Not like that in Israel. In many cases, not too many things to say about it, but people make it because that's what this society is about, what this country is about. That's why I want to welcome you here. That's why I'm proud to be the speaker. I'm proud that you are here. And thank you very much for all your efforts. And thank you very much for being so persistent in bringing these groups to the Knesset and bringing them to Israel. Thank you.